Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to create the greatest player of all time, but he's going to start in the CHL. He's going to start in the CHL and work his way up all the way to the NHL. So he's going to start in the CHL, then the ECHL, then the AHL, and finally the NHL. Now, in order for him to move up in a league, he is going to have to win the Stanley Cup or the Stanley Cup equivalent of that league. So basically the Memorial Cup in the CHL, whatever the hell they have for the ECHL, the Calder Cup in the AHL, and finally the Stanley Cup in the NHL. Now here's the challenge. We have to do all of this in under 10 seasons. So if he does all 4 in one season apiece, that is 4 already. So we are on a bit of a time crunch here. Now Bendover obviously is a 99 overall, but this time he's going to be playing defense, not forward. So we are going to see how good a 99 offensive D-man is going to be in the CHL. He is also going to start out on the Halifax Mooseheads. He's 17 years old, coming into his draft season, and he is looking to move up to the ECHL. Regardless, Bendover is here and he is ready to go. Alright, so here's the challenge. We have 10 years to win all 4 trophies, starting from the CHL all the way up to the NHL, and the only way Bendover can move up is if he wins that with his team. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck in that league until he wins the trophy. That's just how it is. Now, another thing is Bendover is also going to be playing defense, and we're going to simulate and see how good he truly can be as the greatest player of all time. Let me know in the comments what you rate Bendover's drip 1 to 10 right now. Number 69, of course. He's got the Yager mullet, the white CCM stick. I think he's looking pretty drippy, boys.
I gotta be honest, this dude looks like he could bend me over and absolutely rail me hard.
So the Halifax Mooseheads are going to have a great regular season, going 57, 7, and 4. Good enough for first in the entire CHL, actually entire Q. Unfortunately, we do not have the entire CHL here, but we are in the QMJHL, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the league that has just banned fighting. Yes, one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen a organization or league ever make. Followed by Gatineau, Sherbrooke, Bailly. Oh my god, Bailly. I definitely butchered that name. It's some town in French. Now, despite being a defenseman, Bendover is still going to absolutely dominate. He had 120 goals, 138 assists for 258 points in only 68 games in the Q. Jordan Dumais had 54. Yeah, it was not even close. After that, the dude was a plus 154. That is insane. 25 game-winning goals. Now, he's obviously going to have the most points in the entire queue. Also, goals, it was not even close. The next closest was 23. If I'm being honest, that's quite embarrassing, but regardless, Bendover is going to dominate yet again. Now, the Halifax Mooseheads are going to play Drummondville in the very first round. Hopefully, we can work our way on to the QMJHL finals or whatever the hell they call it. And just like that, we are in the QMJHL finals up against the Gatineau Olympics. Can we go on and win the Q in our very first season? And just like that, the Halifax Mooseheads are going to go on and win the QMJHL Cup as they beat Gatineau in, I believe, 5 games in the Q finals. Bendover was an absolute monster carrying his team, and there he is, boys. Bendover shaking the hands of all these players that are well below his skill level. Okay, so now that we won the Q, we are in the Memorial Cup. We have to go on and win it. That is the challenge. If we fail it, we have to restart yet again in the CHL. Alright, so in the Memorial Cup final, we are up against the Kamloops Blazers. Can we go on and win Bendover the Memorial Cup in year number 1? Can anyone tell me the last guy to try the Michigan on his own goalie? That is why nobody is better than Bendover. And just like that, the Halifax Mooseheads are going to go on and win the Memorial Cup as they beat the Blazers in the Memorial Cup final. And Bendover has completed one step of the challenge so far in his very first season. We got the CHL down quick and early, boys. I mean, come on now. A 99 overall player in the Q or in the CHL is absolutely absurd. He's obviously going to be able to carry his team all the way to Memorial Cup final. He is just too goddamn good for this league. So the next step up is the ECHL, baby. We are going to have to try to conquer that league. Where is Bendover? They literally did not show him in the huddle there. I have no idea. There he is, Mr. Ben, baby, shaking. Why does that guy have his cage still on? And here he is, baby. Bendover coming to lift the Memorial Cup for the very first time in his career. This is literally one step to becoming the greatest player of all time. Next up, the ECHL. Here we go. Before we move on to the ECHL, Bendover would end up having 35 goals and 64 points in only 20 playoff games in the CHL. Bendover is going to end up taking the top scorer of the Q trophy. He's also going to take home the MVP of the Q, the best defenseman in the entire Q as well. He's also going to win the D-Man of the Year, the Rookie of the Year as well. He's also going to win the Best Defensive Defenseman in the entire queue. He's going to win the Frank J. Selke Memorial Trophy awarded to the player with the most sportsmanlike. He is also going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award in the queue. Oh my god, these trophies are all the same. And finally, he's going to win the Guy Lafleur Trophy, which is awarded to the most valuable player in the playoffs. He just had the greatest QMJHL season of all time. Alright, so Bendover has moved up to the ECHL. He's going to play for the Jacksonville Icemen.
Isn't Jacksonville in Florida? Why the hell would they be called the Icemen?
There's like no actual real ice in Florida. It's too goddamn warm. Regardless, he's going to play on that team in the ECHL, and in order to move up to the AHL, he's going to have to win the playoff MVP, well, the playoff trophy, whatever the hell it is. So there he is in the Jacksonville Iceman jersey, the uniform, whatever the hell you want to call it. Honestly, the jerseys are below mid. I'd rate them probably like a 4 out of 10, 4.5 maybe. Now, Bendover is obviously still a 99 overall on that first line D pair, but this league is definitely going to be a step up from the QMJHL. Is that Nate Robinson? Neil Robinson, my bad. I still cannot get over him getting knocked out by Jake Paul, but regardless, the overall should be higher, so it should be a little bit of a tougher time for Bendover. Maybe not. You never know, because Bendover is the greatest player of all time. So the Jacksonville Icemen are going to end up finishing first in the entire ECHL, going 56-12-4. They were the best team in the entire league. They had 116 points, followed by the Idaho Steelheads, the Allen Americans, the Tola, oh my god, what the hell? Kansas City was up there, Newfoundland, Worcester, Maine. Now Bendover is still going to dominate, 131 goals for 280 points in 72 games. Brown had 56. Cockerill? What the hell? There is no way. Garrett Cockerill. That literally cannot be his real name. There's no way. He had 4 goals, but 50 assists for 54 points. Lynch was up there, Russell, Hadfield, Martin. Now for the entire ECHL, obviously Bendover is going to have the most goals at 131 and points at 280, followed by this guy who had 63. Watson had 61. Yetman 58. Gugolev 56. Brown had 56. McLaughlin was up there. I mean, nobody was really even close. I mean, 63 points. Nobody was point per game in the ECHL. And I believe we are going to end up playing the Florida Everglades in round number 1. How many teams does Florida have? I know the Orlando Solar Bears, the Jacksonville Icemen, and now the Florida Everglades? Is this just like the Florida Hockey League? What is going on here? And in our very first season in the ECHL, we have made the finals. We are up against that team, which name I cannot pronounce. It's like Toodaloo Waddley or something like that. Regardless, can we go on and capture the ECHL Cup? And the Jacksonville Icemen are going to go on and win the ECHL Cup as they beat their rivals in 5 games in the ECHL Finals. Bendover was obviously a monster, but this team really... The Kelly Cup? Is that what it's called? Did I just see that correctly? It's called the Kelly Cup. I guess the Jacksonville Icemen are going to be Kelly Cup champs, boys. That is the silliest name for a trophy ever. Unless it has some like underlying meaning behind it. Regardless, we are the Kelly Cup champs as we are the winners of the ECHL. We have gone 2 for 2. We are halfway there, boys. I'm sure once we get to the NHL, it's going to be much tougher for Bendover to win the Stanley Cup. I figured he would absolutely fly through these lower leagues because he's just so much better than everybody else. There he is, Bendover, baby, shaking hands, a classy man. And there he is, Bendover, baby, coming to collect the Kelly Cup. There it is. He's going to lift it above his head. Bendover is a CHL champ and now an ECHL champion. So for the playoffs, Bendover is going to have 28 goals and 69 points. And that was only going to be in 24 playoff games. So he was by far goal per game and by far point per game. He is obviously going to lead the entire ECHL in goals with 28 and points with 69. It was not even close. I mean, the next closest was 19 points. And for goals, the next closest was 8. So I guess there's no awards for the ECHL and NHL 23. So now we are off to the AHL, the American Hockey League. Bendover has been called up to the AHL, the American Hockey League, to play for the Hershey Bears, where he's going to absolutely carry these guys all the way to a Calder Cup. How does he look in a Hershey Bears uniform? Rate it 1 to 10, boys. Obviously, Ben is still a 99 overall. He's going to be the best player in the entire world or in the entire AHL because that's all we're playing here. I mean, this is definitely going to be a step up from the ECHL and 100% from the CHL. So will Bendover still dominate like he did in the CHL and the ECHL? Let's find out. So the Hershey Bears would end up finishing first in the entire AHL. They would end up going 53, 19, and 0. Wow, they actually had 0 overtime losses. That would be good enough for 106 points, by far the best team in the entire AHL, followed by the Ontario Reign, the Hartford Wolfpack, the Rochester Americans, and the Texas Stars. At the bottom of the AHL, we have the Grand Rapids Griffins, the Utica Comets, and the Bridgeport Islanders. Now, Bendover would not have as many points as he had in the CHL or the ECHL, but he would end up putting up 75 goals and 226 points. Bosa had 63, Connor McMichael 59, Frank 56, Sniffley 55. Now, for the entire AHL, Bendover is still going to have the most goals at 75 and points at 226. The next closest was Ryan DeZingle at 73, Tyann 71, Balkers 70, Martin Ferk had 67, Highmore 64, Holmberg 64. For goals, I mean, Bendover would obviously clear 75 goals compared to the next closest, which was 32. Madden had 32, Ferk 30, 30, 30, 28. So Bendover would still absolutely dominate, just not as much as he did in the ECHL or the CHL for that matter. And the Hershey Bears are going to end up playing the Charlotte Checkers in round number 1. And we have made it all the way to the Calder Cup Finals. We are up against the Bakersfield Condors. Don't mind that, we're already up 1-0. But regardless, can we go on and win the Calder Cup in Bendover's very first season in the AHL? And the Hershey Bears are going to go on and win the Calder Cup as they beat the Bakersfield Condors in 4 games in the Calder Cup Finals. It was a clean sweep. It was not even close. And the Hershey Bears are going to win the Calder Cup in what could be the most ugly jersey I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, this puts Vegas's orange jersey to shame. A cream jersey? Whose idea was it for this? I had to put it on, boys. It was so ugly, I just had to throw it on. As Bendover has almost completed the entire challenge so far, 3 years, he is 3 for 3 so far, as he is a Calder Cup champion, as well as an ECHL champion and a CHL champion. There he is, yet again, shaking hands, a classy man, of course. And here he comes yet again, Bendover, coming to lift the Calder Cup for the very first time in his career. He was a Memorial Cup champion, a Kelly Cup champion, and now a Calder Cup champion. There is only one more trophy that is on his radar, and that is the Stanley Cup. So Bendover was the king of the CHL, the ECHL, and now the AHL, baby. Where the hell is he? He's literally not even in the picture. What is this, EA Sports? Bendover would end up having the most goals at 24 and the most points at 59 for the entire playoff run, and that was all done in only 18 games. That is crazy. Followed by Tyler Benson, who had 21, Myers had 20, Frank 17, Savoie 16. I mean, it was not even close. Bendover is going to end up taking home the Art Ross, the Hart Trophy, the Maurice Richard Trophy, the Rookie of the Year Award, and also the Defensive Player of the Year Award, which was awarded to the best defenseman in the entire NHL. He's also going to win the Jack A. Butterfield Trophy, which is basically the playoff MVP. Alright, so now that Bendover is going to be called up to the NHL, he has to win a Stanley Cup, of course. But we are going to see what team he's going to be on by spinning the wheel. And whatever team we land on, that is the team that Bendover is going to start his NHL career with. And Bendover is going to be joining the Vancouver Canucks in the NHL. Maybe he actually might have EA Sports favoritism on his side, because we all know how good Vancouver simulates here. Alright, so there he is, Bendover on the Vancouver Canucks of the NHL. He has worked his way up here all the way from the CHL to the ECHL to the AHL to finally in the NHL, baby. We have one more trophy on our radar, and that is the Stanley Cup. We have only done 3 seasons so far, so we have 7 more years to capture a Stanley Cup. Now, obviously, Bendover is still a 99 overall. Why wouldn't he be? He's the greatest player of all time. He's going to be on that first D pair with Quinn Hughes. I'm going to move him up there. They're a 90 and a 99 as our first line D pair. That is pretty good. Now, overall, this roster is not the greatest. We already know Vancouver is an absolute shambles. The competition is at an all-time high, so Bendover needs to produce. The Vancouver Canucks are going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL. They would go 52, 25, and 5, followed by the Dallas Stars, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Boston Bruins. Colorado was up there, Minnesota, Winnipeg. Now at the bottom of the NHL, we have the St. Louis Blues, the Seattle Kraken, and of course, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now Bendover isn't going to have the seasons that he had before, but he's still going to put up 53 goals and 190 points, followed by Elias Pettersson, 63, Quinn Hughes, 55, Kuzmenko, 54, Mikheyev had 53. Bendover is going to end up having the most points in the entire NHL with 190, followed by Kucherov's 100, Draisaitl 98, McDavid 97, Marchand had 90, Pasta was up there with 88, Goodrow 88, McKinnon had 85, and Robo would have 83. For goals, the absolute sniper that is Nikita Kucherov is going to have the most in the entire NHL at 63, followed by Bendover's 53, Pasta had 48, Jason Robertson 44, Forsberg 44, Draisaitl 44. Of course, for defensemen, it was not even close. Bendover is going to have the most goals at 53 and points at 190. The next closest was Erik Karlsson at 75, John Carlson at 73, Victor Hedman 70, Miro Heiskanen 69, and the Vancouver Canucks are going to play the Nashville Predators in round number 1. And just like that, in Bendover's very first season in the NHL, we are going to be in the Stanley Cup Final. We are up against the Washington Capitals. Can we go on and capture a Stanley Cup for Mr. Ben, as we are going to lose in 6 games to the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup Final. We were trying to be like Jordan, being undefeated in the finals, but we finally lost. Despite losing, Bendover is still going to have the most goals at 14 and points at 42 in the entire playoffs, followed by Alex Ovechkin's 22, Carter Brown 22, Your Mom's a Hoe 21, Elias Pettersson at 21, Backstrom had 20, Mantha 19. Bendover is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Nikita Kucherov is going to win the Maurice Richard. Bendover would also take home the Norris. Demko is going to take home the Vezina, and the Selke Trophy is going to go to Bergeron. So the Vancouver Canucks are going to end up finishing third in the entire NHL. They would go 50, 26, and 6, which was good enough for 106 points. Colorado would be better than us, and the Florida Panthers, who went 52, 21, and 9. The Winnipeg Jets were up there, the Dallas Stars, the Boston Bruins, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Edmonton Oilers. At the bottom of the NHL, sadly, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Arizona Coyotes. Mr. Ben is going to end up having 57 goals and 176 points, followed by Elias Pettersson 66, JT Miller 59, Kuzmenko 59, Brock Besser had 46, 29 goals though. Quinn Hughes only had 45 points, Carter Garland had 42. Bendover is still going to lead the entire NHL in points with 175, followed by the GOAT Nathan McKinnon, who had 107, Nikita Kucherov had 103, Rantanen 98, McDavid 98, Kaprizov had 95, Zuccarello would have 90, Cole Caulfield was up there with 88, and Braden Point 87. For goals, yet again, Nikita Kucherov is going to have the most. He would end up having one more than Bendover, 58. Bendover would have 57, Patrick Laine 50, Nathan McKinnon 48, Matthews had 45, Rantanen 44, Skinner had 42, Cole Caulfield 42, and Patrick Kane 42. For defensemen, I mean, it was not even close, 57 goals and 175 points. The next closest was Cale Makar with 63, John Carlson had 61, Erik Karlsson 59. Surprisingly, Adam Fox would only have 5 goals and 55 points. That is tough. And the Vancouver Canucks are going to play the Minnesota Wild in round number 1. And yet again, we are back in the Stanley Cup Final. This time, we're going to play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Can we finally go on and complete the challenge, winning the Stanley Cup for Bendover? And the Vancouver Canucks are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Bendover has done it. He has completed the challenge in under 10 seasons. A CHL Cup, an ECHL Cup, an AHL Cup, and now a Stanley Cup to his resume. And of course, Bendover is going to take home the Conn Smythe for the Vancouver Canucks. Who else would it be? This guy has won at literally every single level. And there it is, boys. The end goal, the end game, the Stanley Cup. And here he comes, the man of the video, the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, Mr. Ben Bendover, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the very first time in his career. He won an ECHL Cup, a CHL Cup, an AHL Cup, and now he finally has a Stanley Cup to his resume as the greatest player of all time. And there it is, boys. Bendover is a Stanley Cup champion. It took us 2 years with the Vancouver Canucks, but here we are winning the Stanley Cup in the AHL. Or I mean the NHL. Why did I screw that up? For the entire playoffs, Bendover is going to have 15 goals and 45 points, the most points in the entire NHL. Matthews had 34, Marner 32, Nylander Alexander, 29. Elias Pettersson at 10 goals and 26 points. Varas was up there. Connor McDavid only played 13 games though. For goals, Austin Matthews is going to have the most at 18, followed by Bendover 15, Mitch Marner 10, and Nikita Kucherov 10. Bendover will take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Nikita Kucherov is going to win the Maurice Richard. Ben is also going to win the Norris Trophy and the Conn Smythe Trophy. Alexander Georgiev is going to win the Vezina, and Alexander Barkov is going to take home the Selke. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. Bendover has fully completed the challenge. He started out in the CHL, won that, went to the ECHL, won that, went to the AHL, captured the Calder Cup, and finally he got called up to the NHL. It took him 2 years in the NHL, and he finally won the Stanley Cup. Now, he did this all in 5 seasons, even though we had 10 years to do so. Maybe I should have made it a little harder, because I did figure he was going to breeze through the earlier challenges like the CHL and the ECHL. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.
Bendover is the greatest player of all time. It's not even close. He is the biggest dick as well. What?